Welcome to Introduction to Sociology and our first lecture in this course. I'm actually not going to start exactly with sociology, but I'm going to start with something that's incredibly important for sociological thinking, and that is critical thinking. Some of you might have a lot of experience with critical thinking and learning about it. Some of you might have taken a course in it. There are philosophy courses that focus on critical thinking. And what we're going to discuss quickly is the general standards of critical thinking. And the first one is to be clear. A lot of times we're not very precise in the way that we communicate or even think. Sometimes we're very vague in what we do, and that really does not help us be a capable thinker. And so the idea of clarity in our communications and our thoughts is incredibly important. The next, I think, is actually probably my favorite aspect of critical thinking, one that I often focus on in my classes, and that's being reflective. And so for those of you who are like, what does that mean exactly? Reflective means thinking about why you think what you think. It sounds very Dr. Seuss-like, right? To say, have you ever thought about why you think what you think? But we don't spend a lot of time thinking about where we get the information that forms our thoughts, our opinions, our feelings, our perceptions of the world. And so it's really about asking why. Why do I think this? Why do I feel this? Where did I get this information? And so being reflective is something that I will ask you to do in assignments and discussion boards, that to dig in, to think about why do we do what we do and how do we think what we think. The next is being fair. The idea of fairness with individuals, the idea of fairness with social institutions that we'll talk about this semester. And so how does one determine what is fair for everyone? Next is being systematic. Systematic might be a word, too, that you're going, what exactly does that mean? Well, that means being very organized in our thinking. You can see the image on the left that has all of the kind of messy lines squiggled in a brain, and then the very organized side. And so it's thinking in an organized fashion, being very systematic about flowing from A to B to C and remaining very focused on our overall pursuit of knowledge as opposed to letting things get jumbled. And then finally, being logical. I say it like, and just be logical, but not necessarily responding to things with emotion or opinion, but to look and see if we are looking at information that is coming from logical sound sources and if we are using it in ways that are fair and things of that sort. So I would love for you to jot these down, to remind yourself to kind of use these in the pursuit of sociological thinking. And continuing on with the ideas of sociological thinking, the other thing I want to present to you before we really dig in a little bit more is some of the things that you need to keep in mind when working with sociology. And so the first one is to never assume anything. We have a lot of assumptions that we make as human beings in our society interacting with each other. And so sociology's goal a lot of times is to break down the assumptions that we may have. The next is get ready to be wrong. So sometimes we just are not correct in the way that we thought things always were. And so a lot of times when we look at sociology, sociological phenomenon, it's important to realize and treat it with a level of humility that, yes, we have our perspectives and our experiences, but so many people have different perspectives and experiences and are coming from different places. And so we need to be open to being wrong. It's not a place where I'm necessarily comfortable. It might not be for you either, but really we will not get anywhere unless we're willing to be wrong and to listen and to learn from each other. And then the best way to learn, ask more questions. So the idea of why does this happen? What's the impact? What is this person going through? What have they been impacted by? When I teach sociology, I focus so much on these kinds of moments of empathy building. So asking questions about somebody's behavior in a way to think about what have they endured. And those are themes that will come up in later lectures. So now I have a little random bit to tell you about. It's like my own little personal theory with sociology. When we go through sociology, we talk about theories. And so we're going to be talking about theories as far as sociological paradigms. We'll be talking about theories in relation to family and gender and education, many, many theories. And so I have my own little sociological theory because you might, now that I've been talking about this for a few minutes, still kind of be wondering, what the heck is sociology? They've said that sociology, because we're familiar more with psychology, right? The interpersonal interactions and looking at how people, in a different way, think what they think. They say sometimes that sociology starts in like groups of 3 or more. So you can have interpersonal interaction definitely with 2 people in a relationship or otherwise. But when you start to get larger groups of people, that's, parts of society. And so that's what sociology is studying. Another aspect that is key to sociology is the social institutions that we take part in that I'll be talking about in a few minutes. And so the structure of our society and how it interacts and the impact that it has on us. So here's the way that I kind of describe sociology to my students at the beginning. Did you see that coming? Crayons. So I love crayons. I am a person that's not very, I don't really love a lot of toys or childlike things. I'm a terrible person who's never seen really any child movie, any cartoonish movie. I usually don't watch, but I've just always loved crayons. I can't draw to save my life. But I love all the colors and things of that sort. And so when you talk about crayons, the most basic box, right, is that 8 box of crayons. And if you think about what colors are in there, right? So red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, and brown and black. Sometimes students think it's white and black. Usually, at least the box that I share when I'm in person with my students has brown and black. And so my point in talking about crayons in relation to sociology is that this 8 box of crayons is like your sociological knowledge. Currently, right now, before you even go and do one more assignment or anything in this class, before you listen to me say one more word, you have all of this knowledge. You know about society. You've been living in it your whole life. You know how institutions work, the education institution, the family, things of that sort. And so really, honestly, if I, like this box of crayons, were to ask you to just go on your entire life without ever taking a sociology class, you'd be fine. With this 8 box of crayons, if I asked you to draw a picture of anything, you could do it. You would be fine. Maybe skin tones or things like that might be a little bit difficult, but if you're a capable artist with shading and everything, you could draw and draw and draw with an 8 box of crayons. So basically now I've told you, you don't need sociology. So now you're thinking, why the heck am I taking this sociology course? Well, let me tell you, because what sociology really does is it takes all the knowledge that you have about yourself and society, and it takes that 8 box of crayons and turns it into 64. The whole big box, right? You can see that it says built-in sharpener with the sharpener on the back and everything. And so really what we're doing is taking the knowledge that you already have, that you can have a lot of ownership over, that you have a lot of understanding of how many of these things work already, and we're going to study it. We're going to study it more in depth. We're going to study it looking at the nuanced aspects of it. And so when you think about colors, in that 8 box of crayons, there was green. That was the only choice. Well, now in this 64 box, we've got olive and we've got mint and we've got, remember how crayons do that weird yellow, green and green, yellow, red, orange, orange, red? You have all of these intricacies. And so what sociology does is it expands the way that we think about what we already know. And that can be incredibly meaningful and incredibly important. And so my super cheesy line about these crayons in sociology is really what sociology does is it makes our life more colorful. Are you gagging because that was so cheesy? Probably. Well, continuing on talking about sociology and kind of how we already have a sense of so much, but we can utilize that to learn more. The very first sociological concept that is often presented in introduction to sociology classes is the sociological imagination. And so these are things you're going to want to be jotting down to utilize as you, as a tool, as you work on discussion boards, as you work on assignments. And so the sociological imagination, the definition comes in 2 parts. And the first one is that it's the intersection of history and biography. And so if you think about what history is, that's the larger context of the world. Think about world history, U.S. history. Think about how we don't really know that history is happening until after the fact, but that time and place that we're at is incredibly important to who we are as people. And who we are as people is our biography. I have my own biography. You have your own. That's our individual experience in the time and place that we are. And so if you think about the intersection of history and biography, that is the intersection of your own experiences and who you are in relation to the times that you're living in. So whatever year this may be, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2020, 2030, to think about how that shapes you as a person. So if I am a person in my late 30s or early 40s in these, late teen years, 2016, 2017, 2018, how much different is my experience in the world than an individual who may be 17, 18, 19, 20 in these years? And so that's the thing to think about. Let's think about if it were 47 right now. I would not be sitting on a laptop recording a PowerPoint presentation because I probably, as a person who is a woman, right, would not necessarily have the opportunity to reach the level of education, a master's degree, so that I can teach community college. These are opportunities I might not have had. And so if you think about it, I would have been the same person in 1947 as I am today. But the way that history would have shaped my experiences and my opportunities would have been significant, and it would have altered who I was in some ways. Let's think about a 2047. Can you even imagine? And what could possibly be going on there? What it's going to be if you are a person that maybe you do have children, maybe you want to have children in the future. What would be the moments of history and biography intersecting for them that would be unique to their experience and their age range at the time that they live in? And how our society and what is going on in our society as far as social inequalities and gender and race and education institution and the medical institution and the government, and how does that shape us as people? The other way of looking at the sociological imagination, and I do want to say that this is a theory by a gentleman named C. Wright Mills, who came up with the idea of the intersection of history and biography. The other aspect of it is understanding personal experiences in a broader social context. And so again, looking at what you have experienced as a student, as possibly whatever gender you identify as a possibly as a worker, as a person that has various interests, like your personal experiences in a broader social context. What is the impact of society on who it is you are, and what it is you've experienced? How I have experienced the education system as a person is very much shaped by the way the education system was structured as I was growing up, as I am teaching in it, and going forward, what the changes are. Education as an institution is changing all of the time. Entire paradigms, the way that people think about education can shift, and they have shifted in your lifetime and my lifetime. And how does that then help our understanding of the world and shape who it is as we are as learners and what it is we're able to do? So honest to goodness gracious, I could go on and on and on with examples, and I won't bore you, but I want you to think about how have your personal experiences actually been impacted by broader social issues, by broader social experiences that everyone may be having? So the things that we're going to be talking about in this course, and so as we kind of go through and look at ways of the sociological imagination coming to life, we're going to be looking at various areas of research, how we are socialized as people, our gender and racial identities, our inequalities that we may experience. So maybe it's socioeconomic inequalities, maybe it's based upon gender or race, so we'll be digging into those kinds of concepts. We'll be taking a look at family and education, as I was just mentioning, and then we will end our course with ideas of social change and how it is we can use the various things that we are learning. Because ultimately, as we start off in this first lecture in sociology and go forward, to me the most important aspect is how can we use this? I love getting to teach this because it's so pertinent. Really what we're going to be studying is your life, our life together as a society, and what it is that we experience together and what difference we can make for each other.